Hi, guys, and welcome back to Barbie, a comprehensive history. Oh. As always, I'm your host, Ellis Golden, and today is going to be our final episode, sadly. We're doing the 2010s and 2020s today, as the 2020s are pretty short since we're only in 2021. And then next week and the week after, I'll be doing a re-recording of the 2000s episode, whose audio we sadly lost. But I mean, I guess if any episode, that was an okay one to lose because I didn't actually even finish in the hour. So I'm going to be taking next week and the week after so I can really flesh it out and not feel a need to rush in the re-recording. So this week, for our final episode, we have, I think, a pretty fun episode. It's definitely very different and new because now we're really into what is actually modern things now. So yeah, super exciting. So let's get into the 2010s. So in the 2010s, Barbie got a few more friends. She got Ryan, and he came out in 2010 and he's through the present. He's Raquel's brother, who we talked about in the last episode, and he's Korean American also. He's Ken's enemy as he has a crush on Barbie and therefore competes with Ken for her affection. Speaking of Ken, on Valentine's Day 2011, on funnily enough the anniversary of the day that they split, Ken and Barbie got back together. However, the couple's current status is up in the air. Due to more recent movies and vlogs, it can be assumed that they're not together, but Ken wants to be. In 2013 through 2015, Midge came back with a revamp that has her younger again, unmarried, and without children. This was an attempt to bring back Midge as like Barbie's friend and not really have the distance of marriage and, a whole different type of lifestyle between them. And to also appease the parents that felt that Midge was setting a bad example by being so young and being married and having kids and all that. However, she didn't really catch on. I think a big part that has to do with the type of character she is. Because she, is from like another era and pretty much everything, like her name is Midge. She is very like, she's a little simplistic. She's very like country. And so she just doesn't really appeal to the kids of today with the new brand that Barbie's trying to go through, which is very modern, very like California, very, she's no longer like Barbie, the fashion model that she was introduced as in 1959. It isn't like that anymore. She isn't, hi, I'm Barbie and she's above this, but she still has like, I'm from Willows, Wisconsin, all that. And that's not to say Barbie nowadays isn't down to earth. However, she kind of has this new appearance of she's in the big city now and she's more so, a kid that left her small town life and is now in this very urban area with all these friends from, different backgrounds. And so it's just like a whole new idea. And I think that's really reflected in the dream houses, which I'll get to talking about a little bit later, but they're built a lot more modern. I think everything is just reflecting how, and by modern, I don't mean just because it's now, because, the 70s houses in the 70s were the modern of the time. I more so mean modern in the way that older movies and things would paint this type of architecture as like futuristic. So, more simplistic in style, lots of glass. And then with Barbie, more like outlandish outfits and crazier hair and all that. So it's more futuristic, I guess, is the best word to describe it, because they're trying to lean more into the high tech aspect of today's society than is actually present in everyday life. Um, Now, tangent aside, we have Christy. She came back in 2015. She was just brought back in mention only as being one of Barbie's friends from back home in Wisconsin, which kind of contradicts her backstory from before, at least that she stayed in Wisconsin, because she was definitely with Barbie by the time that Barbie had moved to California. Um, Excuse me, give me just one moment. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Um, but she does get a mention in the movie, which I'll talk about in a second. Barbie and her sisters in a puppy rescue. I'm gonna adjust my mic just a little bit. All right, that's a little bit better for me. In 2015 through present, we have Renee. Renee is Chinese American, and she seems to be a pretty close friend of Barbie, as she is her close friend in various movies that where the plot is Barbie isn't playing a character, but rather it's just Barbie and her friends like doing something. And the most notable movie that I can think of her in is probably Spy Squad, because she is like one of the main three characters in that movie. And so there's a really big emphasis on her. In 2016 through 2017, we got introduced to Harper, and Harper was, I believe, Barbie's first plus size friend, and this was because in 20, I want to say 2016. Let me see. Yes. Um, in 2016, the Barbie's Fashionistas doll line had four body types. And so this is very different. They were trying to like push inclusivity and everything in body types because they'd already been doing that with races, especially after the 80s. That's not to say they weren't doing it before the 80s, but there was really a push for that. But then they decided to really go all in on body types too, to try and push back against the message that Barbie is a bad role model for children due to eating disorders and the like. So Harper had blue hair and she was Barbie's first like official plus size friend. And this was to match with that line. But she only lasted till 2017 because I guess like her character wasn't really getting a great response just with like her personality. Because she was very easygoing and there wasn't really like a big personality there. So they actually kind of opted to go for Daisy, who came out the same year, and is still ongoing. And she's also a plus sized model, and she has pink hair and bangs, and she plays the guitar. So she's a little bit more like spunky and loud. And I think that people took more of a liking to that, or at least like were able to like remember her. She just stuck out a little bit more to them. Then we had Trevlin, Trey, Fink, Noctle, weird name, Fink, Noddle, Reardon, from 2018 to present. This is the Roberts, and by the Roberts I mean Barbie and her sister's neighbor and Barbie's frenemy. So this is her other frenemy, like Raquel is her frenemy. And he's her classmate. He was introduced in Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures, which is a show, and he comes from a lot of privilege, and he participates with his mother to try and get rid of Barbie, because they don't really like them in the neighborhood and everything, and he does so less out of his own wishes and more in order to impress his parents. Then we have Tammy Bounceway, and she's from 2018 to present. She's also Barbie's frenemy. She's Asian American, and she was also introduced in Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures. She's an influencer and first appears as Barbie's competition on a baking game show where she cheats in an attempt to win, which Barbie obviously doesn't like. Because while Barbie is competitive, she doesn't mind losing as long as it's in a fair way. Later, Tammy transfers to Barbie's school where the two of them are always in competition. Ned and Ted are from 2018 to present. They're fraternal twins and they're Trey Reardon's followers in Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures. Also from 2018 to present, we have Harriet. She's one of Barbie's classmates in Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures, and she also goes to the stables with her, I believe. Interestingly, in season 4, episode 7, Ken has a crush on her and attempts to ask her to a school dance with the help of Barbie, but he actually doesn't succeed. So I just think it's interesting that like Ken is seen having a crush on someone else. And Barbie's actually okay with helping because they're not together at this time, and so I think that sets a really good precedent. I also think it's really interesting that he doesn't succeed. I feel like that's also sets a really like cool and interesting and different example to people that like you can be a great like nice person and have a lot to offer, but you may just not be right for that person. There was also a continuation in the So In Style Sis dolls, which was an all black line that we talked about last episode. In 2010, we had the introduction of boys to the line. We had Chandra, who is a friend of Grace, Zahara, who is the little sister of Chandra, Darren, who is the boyfriend of Grace, and Julian, who is the little brother of Darren. Then 2011, we had Marissa, who's a friend of Grace, and she's actually the first Latina or Latinx doll in the line. For Barbie's family, we have Chelsea from 2011 to present. She's just a Kelly doll, same personality, same everything, except for she just got a name change, essentially. Because I'm not really sure why. I mean, Kelly's not really an outdated name, but I guess they felt like Chelsea really reflected like the late 2000s feel that they're going for here, of being just a little bit more like hip, especially since she's like the youngest child. It would make sense that she would have a more modern name. She also got cousins Max and Marie Roberts in 2013. Their actual dolls are very rare. They didn't make a lot because they're from a smaller movie, Barbie and Her Sisters in a Ponytail. And they live in the Swiss Alps, so both of them speak German, French, and English, yet they speak in a British accent, which is weird. Their mother is Aunt Marlene, who also was introduced in 2013 in the same movie, and she owns a horseback riding academy in the Swiss Alps, and that's why Barbie and her sisters are there in the movie. Then we have Adele from 2019 to now. She's Barbie's aunt on her mother's side, and she owns an inn back in Barbie's hometown of Willows, Wisconsin. Also, I forgot to mention her Aunt Marlene is her dad's sister. Then for the sets, dream houses, like I mentioned earlier, are becoming much more modernized and futuristic. They're much more like apartment buildings in style, as they're tall and rectangular with square rooms. Rather than stairs, they have elevators on their sides. And all are bright pink, as pink settles in firmly as the color of Barbie. Because I feel like nowadays we really do think of like pink as being Barbie's color. Like Barbie pink, when you think of Barbie, you think of pink. They're just kind of interchangeable now. But, as we've discussed in the past, I mean, that really wasn't a thing for quite a while. When Barbie was first introduced, and for quite a few decades, yeah, she may occasionally wear pink, but it wasn't really until the 80s where, like, they started to kind of make pink her signature color. Because before then she was just wearing whatever clothes of whatever color was fashionable, and same with items and sets and all that. Um, the dolls are more round faced and smiling now. A lot of them have short dresses or tighter clothes that come in bright colors. There's more of a general idea to dolls now and less specificity, such as slumber party or beach and such. There's not really much of that. It's more so just basic dolls with one set of clothing, which is a direction that I'm not particularly fond of. Just because, like, what's to incentivize a child from getting like a new doll? Like, what is the incentive there? Wouldn't they rather just buy new clothes at that point? Um, and so that's something that's very interesting to me, and a big reason why the 2010s Barbies are actually my least favorite, even beating out 2020, because the 2020 dolls, which we'll get to in a bit, um, I think that they fix a lot of the issues that the 2010 dolls had. Um, like the 2010 inclusivity line in 2016, um, I like what it's doing and I like the message, but I think that there were a lot of issues with the dolls, and a lot of that came from a lack of detail in them and faces and hair and stuff like that. I think it was all just, they were really focusing on let's make a ton of dolls and a ton of different styles of dolls and not really focusing on the quality of them, at least to the degree that Barbie quality used to be. During the 2010s, the movies are 2010 Barbie and a Mermaid Tale, also in 2010 Barbie a Fashion Fairy Tale, 2011 Barbie a Fairy Secret, also in 2011 Barbie Princess Charm School and Barbie A Perfect Christmas. 2012 we have Barbie and a Mermaid Tale 2 and Barbie the Princess and the Pop Star. In 2013, we have Barbie, Mariposa and the Fairy Princess, Barbie in the Pink Shoes, and Barbie and her sisters in a ponytail. In 2014, we have Barbie, the Pearl Princess, and Barbie and the Secret Door. In 2015, we have Barbie and Princess Power, Barbie and her sisters in The Great Puppy Adventure. In 2016, we have Barbie Spy Squad, Barbie Starlight Adventure, and Barbie and her sisters in a puppy chase. And then finally, in 2017, we have Barbie Video Game Hero and Barbie Dolphin Magic. Notice that the numbers don't go up. There's no 18 and 19 on this list, which I would include in the 2010s list. And that's because in my theory of Barbie Video Game Hero, it was a movie that generally people hate or didn't watch. And Barbie, the movies were kind of going downhill before that point, but Barbie Video Game Hero was so bad that I have a feeling they kind of looked at it and went, we need to take a few years off and figure out, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and fix it from there. I've actually seen all of these movies and am a fan really of none of them. That's not to say I disliked all of them. That's just to say that they're not movies that I'd go back and rewatch. Some of them are all right, like Barbie and a Mermaid Tale, Barbie the Pearl Princess, probably my favorite out of these, and Barbie Princess and the Pop Star. Barbie Princess and the Pop Star is very interesting because it's just Barbie Princess and the Popper. It's another like version of that, and they reuse some of the music from the original movie, but with like a pop star type, more of like a pop vibe to some of the songs, and then they have covers of a few songs. The worst Barbie movie ever by far is Barbie Video Game Hero, which it's horrible to look at and listen to, and the plot's terrible. It's an obvious Wreck-It Ralph like copy, and it does a terrible job. It's just like Wreck-It Ralph at times, or I should say Wreck-It Ralph 2. It's just a huge advertisement for a lot of things. And then it's also just, it's very cringy, doesn't know its audience. It takes everything good about Wreck-It Ralph and basically annihilates it into just being like, yeah, kids like video games, right? Let's do that, which is not the point. My least favorite Barbie movies tend to be those where she doesn't play a character, but it's just a story about herself and her life. And that's not to say I dislike Barbie stories, but I tend to find them a little bit cringy with the way that they write her and her sisters. And I get that it's for kids, but they kind of talk down to their audience now in a way that the earlier movies didn't do. And I don't really like that because I think that it's really important that you don't talk down to kids because they tend to be a lot more articulate and just a lot better at speech and language and storytelling and such when you give them more adult stories, but with appropriate content. It's for this reason I have not really watched any of the shows of Barbies, which are as follows. In 2012, we have Life in the Dream House. 2015, we have Barbie Vlogs, which is on YouTube. 2017, we have Barbie Happy Birthday to You. And then 2018 through now, we have Dreamhouse Adventures. Now, let's get into the controversies, which is possibly my favorite part in like a weird, like sick way. Because I don't want Barbie to have controversies and I don't want to see like the downfall. But I mean, they're always like the juicy parts of stories, let's be honest here. We have the Tokidoki and Barbie doll line. Love Tokidoki, by the way. Let me preface it by saying that. Which came out in 2011, and they were the first Barbie dolls with real tattoos, meaning she didn't come with like temporary tattoos and stuff. The Barbie dolls themselves were tattooed. And all three of them had full sleeves and collarbone tattoos. And just like the temporary tattoo Barbie doll, some parents believed that it was like setting a bad example for their kids because they thought that in seeing that, they might be encouraged to later on get or like want tattoos. There's a 2010 book called Barbie, I Can Be a Computer Engineer, in which she only designs the items, but she needs the help of Steven and Brian to actually code them. Then she infects her computer and again requires the boys' help. The public response to this obviously was really bad as soon as someone actually picked up and read it and they were like, ooh, this is not setting a good example. So people reported on it and Mattel responded being like, yeah, this was a huge oversight. Like, this is not the messaging that we want to put out. And so they really apologized profusely. And the public response was pretty wonderful. And I think like a really good example of community and how people really do want the best for the brand overall. And so there were tons of people that submitted thousands of submissions with suggestions of how to fix the text. Some even completely rewriting the book. Some had the roles reversed where Stephen and Brian were designing and then Barbie was coding. And but still Stephen and Brian's job was still highlighted as being an important job because design is. But it was less traditional. So, because men typically are made fun of in a designing field, and women are not really allowed into STEM and, coding and all that. So by reversing the roles, I think it does a really good job showing that they're both really important and that either gender can be in those roles. Give me just a moment. Then in 2010, we have Barbie Video Girl, which was a doll that came with a small video camera on her chest and a screen on her back for recording videos. While nothing was reported to have happened, the FBI issued an alert about the doll in fear that child's you-know-what could be recorded and distributed by the doll. Then in 2013, we had a Mexican Barbie doll of the world. While not the first and last Mexican Barbie doll of the world, it's the only one which caught flack for being too stereotypical. She came in a bright pink dress with ribbons, carried a chihuahua, and came with a passport and sticker sheet to record her travels. Yikes, that was pretty bad, especially the passport. I feel like the chihuahua was like, ooh, that's not in great taste, but it's not the worst. But then the passport's it's a little gross. Sends some bad messages. In 2014, we have Barbie on the cover of Sports Illustrated. In honor of the 50th anniversary, Barbie posed as a swimsuit model on a Sports Illustrated magazine cover, wearing a version of her original swimsuit from 1959. She stands in a confident pose with her hands on her hips, and the cover says, "The doll that started it all." And inside of the magazine is the word unapologetic. And that really stood out to a lot of people. Some parents expressed that this was not appropriate, with Barbie being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, because it's typically, scantily clad swimsuit models. But lots of other people, love the unapologetic message and the reclaiming of feminine power that she represented. In 2013, Barbie Loves Girl Scouts doll came out, and this was a multi-million-dollar collaboration between Girl Scouts and Barbie. But it came under fire as some parents of Girl Scouts or some former Girl Scouts believed that Barbie was not a good role model for children. Girl Scouts and Barbie responded by basically saying that they're a wholesome brand with messages of love, acceptance, and empowerment, especially for women. And so, I have to really agree with that. I don't really get where those parents were coming from. As always, I'm going to list the careers that she had. In 2010, she was an elementary school teacher, a news anchor, a computer engineer, and a movie actress. In 2011, she was a movie actress, a movie star, a yoga teacher, a soccer coach and player, an architect, a cafe owner and waitress, and that was in Princess Charm School that she did the cafe owner and waitress careers. In 2012, she was a ballroom dancer, a football player, a presidential candidate, a gymnast, a tennis player, a hairstylist, a snowboarder, an Arctic rescuer. By the way, fierce outfit on that one. In 2013, she was a chancellor, and this one was only available in Germany, and an ocean treasure explorer. In 2014, she was a music teacher. In 2015, she was a gymnast, a lecturer, an eye doctor, and a film director. In 2016, she was a presidential candidate, a vice presidential candidate, a game developer, and a resort greeter and cat burglar, and this was in Spy Squad. In 2017, she was a football player, a tennis player, a rock climber, a skateboarder, a martial artist, a skier, a tennis coach, a rhythmic gymnast, a volleyball coach, this was only available in China, and a musician. In 2018, she was an animal rescuer, and the fawn that she comes with is so cute. A gymnast coach, a golfer, a dancer, a beekeeper, a baseball player, and a robotics engineer. In 2019, she was a judge, a pet groomer, a basketball player, a park ranger, an astrophysicist, and a photojournalist. And I will continue just as soon as I mention some things about the photojournalist one. I love the face mold here. She has the most beautiful almond-shaped eyes. She has soft blue eyes that complement her skin tone. She's possibly the Barbie doll that looks the most like me, as she has blue eyes, rounded brows, a bigger button nose, and medium-sized lips. Um, and that's not to say she looks like me, that's just to say that I don't really feel like there are any dolls that look quite like me. You know, there's tons of white, brown haired Barbie dolls. But this one probably, if I had to make a Barbie doll for me and I had to start by using a doll that already exists, I'd probably use this as the base. Also in 2019, she was a polar marine biologist, and I love this doll's facial sculpt. I'm not crazy about her hair texture and the color of her hair, but her skin color matches perfectly with her red coat color, and she comes with the most darling penguin. In 2019, she was also a news anchor, a chicken farmer, and let me just say the chickens are so cute, a noodle bar worker, a boxer, and a wildlife conservationist. Now, taking a bit of a more somber turn, this will end us out of the 2010s. On July 21st, 2011, Elliot Handler died of a heart failure in his home in Los Angeles at the age of 95, joining his son Kenneth and his wife Ruth in the afterlife. Their daughter Barbara is still alive and helps work for Barbie, which is the company named after her. Now I'm going to take just like a 1 minute break, and then we're going to get into the 2020s. All right, guys, and I'm back. So let's get into the 2020s. So I'm going to end with the questions, and I'm going to start with the movies that have come out so far. So in 2020, we had Barbie Princess Adventure, which I watched, and let me tell you, I did not like it for one, but also it is the fourth Barbie movie iteration of Barbie Princess and the Pauper, which makes me upset because I feel like it's kind of ruining the legacy of the first one, which is one of my favorite movies ever, not just Barbie movies, so that's a little frustrating. Hate to start this out on a complaining note, but yeah, I'm kind of frustrated with the state of the Barbie movies currently because I feel like they're kind of going away from everything that made the old ones really good. Then in 2021, we have Barbie and Chelsea. It's Barbie and then Chelsea, The Lost Birthday, which came out. It's on Netflix, and I've been waiting for a good time to watch it with my friend that watches all the movies with me. So I actually haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to check it out. It's about her, like Barbie and her sister Chelsea again, so I have a feeling I'm not going to like it that much just because it is the newer animation style that I'm not a huge fan of, and it's following like her real life stuff, quote unquote real life, obviously. But I'm hoping, it's still entertaining and fun. In 2020, we have Dreamhouse Adventures Go Team Roberts. And uh, I want to give you guys a quick number that I found really interesting. Barbie actually makes $1 billion a year now. And that's actually, funnily enough, the number of clothes that have been estimated to have been made since 1959, which is 1 billion, which is quite a lot of little tiny Barbie clothes. And I hate to be that person because I love Barbie clothes, don't get me wrong. But I feel like they really need to focus on the quality and not the quantity. Possibly even like buying back old Barbie clothes and fabrics from people that are like in bad shape and everything. Um, because, fast fashion is a really big issue with everything. Economy, environment, that's the biggest issue. And also like bad labor practices. And so I think that it's really important that they get that number down significantly and focus on like the quality of coming out with a good few dolls a year that they like that are really good rather than a ton of dolls with a ton of clothes. Um she's had over 200 careers since 1959, which is amazing. I think it sets a great role model, a great precedent, and I just think it's awesome. According to Mattel, the Barbie Fashionistas line now includes 176 dolls with 8 body types, 35 skin tones, and 94 hairstyles. And this includes a bald Barbie and a Barbie with vitiligo. I think this is wonderful. I really love the way that they're like putting inclusivity into the line. And I think each doll is really like beautiful and unique and very stylized in a way that I just think is great. That the 2016 inclusion fashionistas line didn't really have. I think it was a lot of like, I describe it as like rough drafts. Whereas this, we're getting a lot closer to like a great final product. And that actually leads me into something that I want to play for you guys, which was a video that I found on YouTube on the Barbie channel. This is a video of Barbie and her friend Nikki, who is her closest black friend, discussing racism. And this was during the time of the George Floyd protest that happened last year. And I just think that it's just really interesting and really important for the conversation to start happening young, because I don't think that it's a, quote unquote inappropriate one. I think that kids need to know about racism. They need to know about the systemic issues of racism, and they need to be taught much more Black history. So I think that this is a great like conversation starter. It's only 3 minutes long, so I'm gonna play it for you guys really quick. But yeah, I just think that it's a actually really good, simple way of kind of explaining it to kids in a way that isn't talking down to them. And here I go.
Hey everybody.
Hey everyone.
So there is a huge movement going on. People, millions of people across the world are standing up to fight against racism. And they're doing this because too often and for such a long time, people have been treated unfairly. And in some cases, even hurt by others because of the color of their skin. This stuff isn't easy to talk about, which is exactly why we have to talk about it.
It's a tough conversation, but I'm glad we're having it. People might think that my life looks fine, but the truth is I and so many other Black people have to deal with racism all the time. It's really hurtful and it can be scary and sad, and I wanted to share some stories about that today. Barbie and I had a sticker selling contest on the beach last month. We split up and went different directions to see who could sell the most. Well, while I was on the boardwalk, beach security stopped me 3 times.
What?
They asked me all these questions over and over, and they even called my mom. I never told you, but that's why I sold a few stickers that day. The security officers thought I was doing something bad, even though I was doing exactly what you were doing. And remember when we were going to join that French honor club at school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I made a perfect score on the entrance test, but when the teacher, who didn't know me at all, gave me my results, he told me I only did well because I got lucky. He said he knew I couldn't speak French that well.
What? You speak French better than all of us. Why didn't you just stay in the club and prove him wrong?
I don't want to have to constantly prove and reprove myself. He supported you right from the beginning and didn't support me. Usually when I talk about these things, people make excuses. They say things like, oh, well, maybe you should have had a permit for selling on the beach. But those are just excuses. People did these things to me because I was Black and they made the wrong assumptions about me.
And they don't make those assumptions about white people like me. And that's not fair, because that means that white people get an advantage that they didn't earn, and Black people get a disadvantage that they don't deserve.
Exactly. It's really serious. Some people even get hurt when others think the wrong things about them. That's exactly why people are marching, because when enough of us stand together, people pay attention.
Right. Because when we don't say anything, we're just letting it continue.
Well, you listening and being supportive, that's helpful. It's important to keep reading and learning more about Black history. And if someone is being treated unfairly, stand up for that person. If we all work together, we can make a big difference.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me today. With us.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's necessary.
So yeah, I wasn't, I saw the video and I wasn't sure what to expect because I was a little worried that they would be taking it a little too lightly, for kids' sake. But I was actually very impressed by the conversation. I felt like they tackled a lot in such a short time, to kind of keep up with kids' attention spans. Yet they really got to the heart of the issue without brushing past it, which is that, you know, these like horrific acts aren't just, the part of racism. It's a lot of very systemic issues that may not seem like big deals, but are indicative of a way bigger problem. And so speaking of social media and kind of like interaction with the community with that, I follow the Barbie Instagram account and they're constantly doing polls where you get to vote on Barbie styles and then the number one like votes when they win out, they get actually made into dolls and stuff. So I just think that that's a really cool way that the brand is kind of keeping up with modern times, and kind of making the kids like participate in a way that I don't feel like they could in the past. So they're really a part of the company too. Her 2020 careers include Olympic climber, Olympic, I don't know how to say this, karateka, Olympic softballer, Olympic skateboarder, and a tennis player. And then her careers that don't really have specific dates attached to them, I couldn't quite find it. So these are not all 2020s in these dates. They're just careers that I'm not really sure where they fell. A special education teacher, I think sometime in the early 2000s, I want to say like 2004. An artist, a meme maker, apparently, a coffee shop worker, and let me tell you, this is the cutest set ever, and I'm actually obsessed with it, and I like may ask for it for my birthday because it has like cute little strawberry like frappuccinos and like matchas, and it's just so cute. I love little stuff like that. It's adorable, and it's so like modern with like the style of like Starbucks coffee shops where it's like the more you know it really gets to the like zeitgeist of what like coffee shops and stuff like that is now, with like cake pops and matcha lattes and stuff. And then DC superheroines and villainesses, Marvel superheroines, and a mermaid. So now I'm going to do some quick questions that I had asked from Instagram and then from friends and family. Question number 1 is, why is Ken so fine? I can't really relate to this. I don't think Ken is that fine, frankly. There's just way more beautiful Barbies than Ken. Like, are you kidding me? Have you seen Summer? Have there been any canceled Barbies? Any cool stories behind those? I suggest listening to the controversy section on past episodes because I feel like that's where you'll get a ton of them and all the interesting stories to go with them. What's your favorite movie song? This is a tough decision for me. It's definitely in Barbie Princess and the Pauper, but I'm not quite sure which one, though I think I'd have to go with Free, because of the strong messages, the fact that it's the first song, the storytelling aspect. I really feel like it's very musical and not just music in a movie. And it has really good lines like, I'm realizing that every present comes with strings, said by Annalise when she's receiving wedding presents for her arranged marriage. How do they make the Barbie hair? They sew it in. And this is using a special type of sewing machine. This is just for fast production. You can hand sew it in also. But a special type of sewing machine, you can sew it in, and they have to sew it in really well because kids are very likely to pull on it. So if you've ever like gotten a Barbie doll, you know that like the only way really to get the hair out is to take off the head and then pull it out from the inside. Do you have a favorite Barbie or Barbie movie? My favorite Barbie is the twist and turn Barbie, all iterations of that. Doesn't really matter, outfit or whatever. I'm more concerned about like the facial mold and the hair. I really like those. And my favorite Barbie movie is Barbie Princess and the Pauper. What decade did Barbie reach the greatest popularity by sales? Now, actually. Mostly just because consumerism is really at an all-time high, and they're making a ton more Barbie models. So, it's just tons of sales. $1 billion a year right now is quite a lot. But that's not to say that they were doing shabby anytime before. Though the highest selling Barbie doll was Totally Hair Barbie, and that was from 1992. And then, has Barbie ever been a superhero? Yes, Barbie was a superhero in Barbie Princess Power from the 2010s. All right, guys, I'm kind of last few seconds here tune in to, oh, it's the last episode. I don't even have to do that. That's so sad. It's like the end of an era. Though I will still be re-recording the 2000s. So if you want to tune in for that, then you can. But thank you guys so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the series. I had a lot of fun making it. And I even learned some things along the way that I didn't know. So that was really fun. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you're still listening at this point, leave